All right. Well, thank you. It's great to be with all of you, and I've seen many wonderful conversations unfolding across all the tables, and certainly out in the hallways too. Delighted to be with all of you. I'm Pete Mansel, the Chief Revenue Officer, based out of Atlanta. I joined Simpro about 9 months ago, and it's just been fantastic to travel across the world and visit with so many of our customers and partners. So thank you for being here. Really excited about this discussion today, and I think before we kick it off, I want to ask if anybody is familiar with the Japanese term gemba. Have you ever worked in an environment, maybe in manufacturing, perhaps lean manufacturing, or been in a plant, heard any of these terms? All right, well, let me tell you, gemba is about going to the place of work where value is created. And you may say, what does that have to do with data? Actually, quite a bit. All of you create value. It could be out on the site. It could be at your kitchen table with a cup of coffee, looking at spreadsheets, trying to get underneath how is our profitability. But in the manufacturing world, it's very much around we have to go and walk the floor, and if something didn't go right at the end of that production line, if we didn't get the yields that we were looking for, that problem likely showed up earlier. Somewhere in the data, there was some leading indicator that said we have a problem over here, but most people aren't maybe looking at it, and therefore what they just see is, wow, we didn't get the number of runs done, and it created a problem for us. And they say, what does that have to do with Simpro? Well, I'll tell you, if you think about your own business, everybody has a silent partner, and that silent partner is tracking everything that your technicians do. It tracks job costs. It tracks people's time, where they are. And it's really a good way to think through how do I engage with this partner so that I can gain intelligent insights that the system has, but I just might not be taking the time to look at. And the reality is, if you're not looking at this silent partner, if you're not engaging with this silent partner, you may be flying blind a little bit. If you take a look at some of those questions, you may say, hey, as a business owner, your gut instinct may be spot on. You may know exactly kind of what the intuition is telling you. But what happens when the business hits a little bit of turbulence? And maybe your gut feels one thing, but the data or the numbers, the results are saying something else. So when you think about these questions, it's a bit of like, hey, well, do I know my most valuable services that are offered? Do I know who my most profitable technicians are? Do I understand who may need more training to have a better result at the end of the week? All those insights are available within Simpro today. But as I've talked with many customers, both from London and leading up into here, many have said, I just don't have the time to look at everything that I need to look at. I think I know it's there, I recognize it's there, but I'm not spending enough time on it. And the reality is we believe that Simpro could really operate as your instrument panel, right? Giving you the guidance and candidly the confidence that you need to make better decisions, to drive better outcomes for your business. The silent partner, as we call it, it's ready to answer, and we just want to make sure that we're creating space for that to happen. So if you think a little bit about with silent partner, in the past, data was a bit of a receipt, right? Kind of proof of work, what happened, but it was a look back in the past. And today, we believe Simpro is really that GPS of the present. Right, where it can provide you with the insights of, hey, here's where we are today. I'm not flying blind. I know who's most profitable. I know which customers are driving the highest margins for us. That data exists, but I still find many people aren't really spending enough time looking and analyzing that data. Can you easily tell we're behind schedule on this job, or we don't have enough inventory on the van for that job? You may not find out until you've got that technician on site, and by then it's too late, and it's probably going to lead to a return and then maybe come back to the project again. But the real goal is to candidly create a blueprint for the future, right? How you can kind of start to predict trends that maybe don't just appear naturally. For us, we believe that's how you can really unlock the strategic growth that our platform can provide for you. And that will be the very thing that allows you, we believe, to stay ahead of your competition, maybe outmaneuver your competition, because perhaps they're not really watching that instrument panel. So the idea that, if data is a blueprint, from our perspective, we think about it as really offering 3 pillars of insight, right, that you could take advantage of. One is really around the operational efficiency. Are we doing the job right? The second pillar is really along the financials, right? This is about profitability. I'm sure something very important to each and every one here, driving more of that. And then the third is really around your customer health. Do you understand, are you keeping, are you retaining, are you growing the right customers? That's a pretty important data point. While it's a third pillar, it's certainly no less important. So if we think about spending a little time here on that first pillar, if we say, hey, the first time to fix rate, pretty important, kind of a master metric, I think many would say. We know that if we're doing well here, right, it's highly impactful to customers because they're satisfied. Our technicians, we've got great productivity, and we probably are generating healthy profits. On the flip side of that, we know that a low rate here likely is profit fade, right? It's profit fading away from your business that could otherwise be there if we were kind of doing this right. So Simpro shows you why, right? Not just how. That this silent partner can help to really kind of change the conversation, right? Move you from beyond, why are we slow to like who's moving slow? And perhaps what the insight it provides you is, technician A is only slow when they're on complex electrical jobs, but they're really good otherwise. What is it? Do I just tell them, hey, go work faster? Maybe it's the problem is not that they're working just slow or they don't want to work faster. Maybe they're not properly trained. Maybe they're suffering in silence and haven't come forward and said, I'm just not very good at this. And perhaps if you spent more time taking a look at the pattern in the data that's like they're really good over here but really bad over here, well, then maybe there's an opportunity there to see what's uncovered. And perhaps that is just targeted training that you can do to enhance their capability, polish their skills, and maybe they become more productive for you. Now, as we move into pillar 2, right, when we talk about margin, certainly something very important here. Understanding where that comes from. Where am I making money and where am I not making money? We found that oftentimes the gut feel may say, hey, trucks are rolling, everybody's in the field, this is great, we're making money. Well, what if it just so happens that a lot of that work, is perhaps install work, and what it's really doing is maybe a 12% margin for you, when in fact it's your emergency call-outs that are generating a 40% margin. As much as you may dread them, the time of day that those might be occurring, you may find, hey, that's the most profitable work. And it would probably be good to use that insight to say, wow, this is a game changer. Is my business, are we focused on the right things? Are we trying to create more opportunities with customers that drive that high margin work for our business versus just being really busy all the time? I was talking with a business owner at Simprosium in London. He said, you're right. He said, I think we've been so focused on big jobs and driving our top line, we kind of lost sight of the fact of like, wow, we just make a lot more money on these other ones, and we just need to spend more time on that. But he said, candidly, we're on the tools, we're in the field, and we're not looking at the data that's readily available to us. On the third point here, really around our most valuable patrons, right? Your customers. Sorry here, your customers. Did I just go past that? Sorry. There we go. Okay. The third pillar, most valuable customers. Very, very important to understand. I think the Pareto principle very much very much applies. You may say that, yeah, the reality is 20% of our customers are generating 80% of our profit. Well, you should probably find more of those lookalikes. What is it about that cohort of customers that if you just had more of them would really unlock a lot more margin for your business overall? And again, that data exists within the system. Curious, and we'll get into a little bit of Q&A, how many feel that it's readily available? How many feel that it's easily accessible? How many are using it to really go drive the annual insights that would say, you know what, we're going to pivot and go on a little bit of a sales campaign and sales effort here to really bolster up, our awareness for emergency call-out work, because we just know it's better for us. Versus always maybe chasing the largest job that, there's been a RFP and bids out on that looks really, really big, but could be really, really labor intensive. And perhaps, the equipment or materials for that job is just very, very thin margin because perhaps it's in such a competitive arena. There's an opportunity to really study the customer base and figure out how do we find and clone and celebrate more customers like these ones that are driving all of our margins. So, if we think a little bit about, the data in this, there's another element here about the silent partner in your pocket. Clearly, the insights that, we can provide, that data doesn't just show up in the system, right? It's really captured every single moment in the field by the technicians. And that's the silent partner that's actually in their pocket, right? It gathers that data, accurate time and materials, their schedules, everything we talked about, the insights to be gained from pillar 1 and 2, only to identify, hey, Tech A needs help on the electrical jobs, or, they need more training, or we need to stay away from the low margin jobs. This is where you can actually say, hey, how do we leverage everything that, the Simpro Mobile is collecting based on everything that we're learning that the technician is finding? For example, they may be on site at a job and they snap a photo of maybe a corroded pipe. Well, that's a new sales opportunity. That's an upsell quote waiting to happen, right? That they could take advantage of, load back into a CRM. Someone back in the office, maybe a biz dev rep or a sales rep, could call out and say, hey, while you're on the job today, we noticed this. Would you like us to schedule your repair, right? That insight can be gained every single day, all around the clock, probably at many and many of the sites. And those very insights can really boost the productivity across the team and really to help your business. Now, if you think about all this we kind of think through an insight to action flywheel, okay? And what I mean by that is, now that we've kind of pinpointed the issues or opportunities maybe with our technicians, we find the most valuable work that we could go out and do. We've identified who our best customers are and how the mobile app, gathers all of that raw data. But none of that happens by accident. It's all done through a system. And this insight to action flywheel is that system that really makes kind of everything that we've been discussing here come to life. So if you think about it, and just a normal example, right? We may collect that, hey, technician A's time on the job through the mobile app. Then you analyze that information or that data, and you say, you know what? Yeah, they're really slow on this. Their average time, it's not that great compared to some other members of the team. And really, then we take that, and then you get to decide, well, what do I do with this information? I know this technician is struggling. How do I use this information to our advantage? Well, you may decide that you're going to enroll them in a training program and get them better skilled so that the next time they go out to that job or that site, they just kind of speed up the work a little bit. And you start to spin that flywheel of continuous or build continuous momentum for your business versus just blaming the person and saying, you're too slow. Right? You're not measuring up compared to some of your peers. We're just taking some time to invest in them because we see the pattern in the data that maybe something is holding them back. So for us, this when you couple that together, this is how we can kind of help our clients get on a continuum from the reactive really through to the ultimate goal here. Because everything we've discussed, really the pillars, the mobile app, the flywheel, it's all moving toward this goal of how do we get, look, if you say today, hey, Simpro, you're helping me, it's great with reactive and proactive, and candidly, you're probably ahead of most of your competition right there, right? Just by having those insights. I've spent some time with some clients that are still or soon to be hopefully Simpro customers that have said, we're still doing everything on clipboards. It's spreadsheets, it's a mess, it's a nightmare back in the office, nothing's integrated, nothing talks, it's just very difficult, right? Well, we want to move them into proactive, which is great, but ultimately if you've heard through some of the sessions as we've talked about AI and capabilities, we do want to move you into a predictive medium where just how you show up for your customers based on the data that's being collected every single moment in the field every day, where you could be able to go to your customers and say, hey, look, I know that based on our schedules, this particular asset typically fails around this time of year. We're coming up on summer. It's going to be hot. Would you like us to go ahead and schedule that now so you're not left in the heat, right? And that's how you can start to move from being just somebody there to, punch the clock on the job that day to really becoming that strategic advisor to your customer, which hopefully earns you more favor and more business versus, perhaps others that aren't investing the time and, aren't being proactive with them. So if we can surface up the data in the system and really generate that for you such that you could say, hey, we're going to start to predict things that are going to happen based on what Simpro is telling us, that is really what we want to build for all of you so that all of you are positioned. As Fred talked about this morning, we would very much love to help you drive much greater profitability for your business, and that's probably one vehicle that if we can serve up intelligent insights to you, it puts you in a better position to capture some of that. Now, while all this has been good, it's much better when we hear from and about customers that had success. This is an example of Sieber Plumbing in Melbourne, who kind of leveraged that flywheel. They put those insights into action. And as you can see here from, as Byron has quoted, but some of these stats they're really just tremendous. They really drove transformative results across their business. It was interesting, I was looking at their case study a bit further, and they used to take them 15 to 45 minutes to quote a job. And now with pre-builds, they have most of that done within under a minute. Their invoicing is kind of same day, jobs done, invoices there. They really sped up the time to actually getting paid. Prior, they would say, gosh, it might be 60 days before we remember to send an invoice out for that job. Now, as you could see here, 90% of their invoices are paid same day. They essentially doubled the profitability of their business. And it was all done through automation, pre-builds, end-to-end workflows that they just stepped back and really said, like, how do we use the system to drive a better outcome? They knew the data was there. So they got smart. They got smart about the power of what Simpro can provide for them. And they actually said as well, leveraging Simpro Mobile, they would make some improvements. Instead of averaging like 3 jobs a day, they clicked on to 4 jobs a day per technician, which was that extra job was very much the thing that kicked a lot of that margin into gear for them based on utilization. They actually said because they were doing better pricing and job costing, their average order value went from $800 a job to about $1,500 a job. And that was just because they were paying attention and doing a better job with utilizing the information that was there. So really, the first step with this is, and I would ask all of you, right, if maybe some of you may have this all figured out, and you've got fantastic margins, and what Fred said this morning about an average 10% margin doesn't apply to you. Maybe you're driving margins like 40% like lawyers. I'm sure there's a lot of other people in the room that would love to hear and learn about that. But if yours aren't quite where you want them to be, then I encourage you to do 2 things. think about how you can kind of pick a question, right? And that could be, what was our most profitable job last month? Just go take a look at that. If you don't readily know, right at your fingertips. Go take a look at the Simpro job profitability report, right? See what that says to you. But probably most importantly is to put a recurring invite on your calendar, maybe 30 minutes every week, to go look at the critical few reports that will be the very things that have you making different decisions every week, because you're looking at profitability per job, profitability per technician, high margin services versus that which is maybe not so high margin, but be intentional about it. I think we're all in this age where there's so much stuff out there. There's so much coming at us. Information, it's very much a data overload. I don't think I'm the only one that feels that. But when you have to aggregate a lot of different things across the business, especially in a more complex business, I find if I don't spend very intentional time in trying to understand what is this even telling me, and how should I make a decision to better drive? Like in my case, look, I have the Simpro sales teams, right, all over the world. I look at how one team is performing versus another. Why are their conversion rates better versus another? Or their win rates? Why is their pipeline better? And I'm trying to look at and harness all this information as well. But if I let a week go by and I'm not intentional about it, it'll sneak up and then things will start to slip. So it really is important to kind of just step back and take some time and really understand the power of what's available there. We certainly have many partners here. They're also surfacing up a lot of that data as well, if you can't readily find it in the Simpro reports, as we work on some more last mile opportunities as well to make some of that easier for you, more easily exposed. But it's there. We got great partners that are there as well, and certainly many customers, just like the Zebra success story, that, hey, they've done it, and I'm sure some of them may be willing to share their insights as well. So kind of as we wrap up, I kind of wanted to open it up and just ask if there's any questions in the room. Did any of this resonate? Do you feel like there's opportunity where Simpro could perhaps provide you more value? Maybe I've got the system, but maybe I could get this much out of it, but I think I'm getting this much out of it right now, because we want to help you. Right, if that's the case. We talked a lot about the account management this morning and creating closer ties, better relationships, and creating more strategic time where we could talk to one another. But by all means, and don't be embarrassed to be the first person, but any of that resonate